The iPad 4 is the last iPad to run iOS 6. It's the last iPad with a design with input from Steve Jobs. It's the last iPad before Apple dramatically changed basically everything about their company. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're going to be talking about the iPad 4th generation and how it marks the end of an era. Now, that might seem a bit overdramatic, but there's no question that Apple really did start to change their business model after this iPad under the new leadership of current CEO Tim Cook. But before we get to that, we do have a quick word from today's sponsor, Wondershare. About a year ago, my hard drive crashed on me, erasing almost all of my data. I lost a lot of stuff, pictures, video, everything. It really sucked. Luckily, I was able to recover a little bit of data here and there, but I really wish I had known about Wondershare's easy-to-use and free program Recover It. Recover It makes it simple and easy to get back corrupted and deleted files off of your hard drive, and it really works. I mean, just look here, it's finding some deleted files from earlier in the day. If that's something you need, make sure you check it out. Links, of course, will be in the description down below. And with that, let's get right back into talking about the iPad 4th generation. It was released in late 2012 and was a necessary upgrade to the very unnecessary iPad 3. That tablet made no sense, as it brought almost nothing over the iPad 2 except a Retina display and very slightly upgraded internals. It was only sold for about 6 months before being replaced by the iPad 4. The iPad 3 was just awful, but luckily the iPad 4 was just the opposite. It was only made obsolete a bit over a year ago, as it can only update to iOS 10.3.3, and all things considered, it has held up really well. While it had the design of the iPad 2, it also had some necessary modern commodities like the Lightning port and Retina display. The iPad 4 has been one of the best iPads Apple's ever made when it comes to everything, including longevity, which feels appropriate considering the significance it brought not only to the lineup, but in what it represented. This was it, the last iPad that spawned from the era of Steve Jobs. It released at the same time as the iPhone 5, which also had the classic iOS 6, the last iOS iteration with the old design. iOS 6 is really something special, and it was the culmination of what Steve Jobs had imagined for the iOS line. It was fast, consistent, and just a pleasure to use. And it's hard to argue that while Apple has gone forward in design since iOS 6, they've also gone back in a lot of areas too. iOS 11 is a perfect example of this. It was a complete and utter disaster. Luckily, iOS 12 has worked to fix all the bugs iOS 11 brought and has actually done a pretty good job. I would argue iOS 12 has probably been the best update in terms of performance and consistency since iOS 6, which is great, but it's pretty sad that it's taken us this long to get back to where we were in 2012. The iPad 4 is the last iPad with the design of the iPad 2. After this, the push to get thinner and lighter took a big step with the iPad Air coming out in 2013. The Air was the second big redesign iPads had seen, and to this day still looks pretty modern. The iPad 4 is a look and feel we haven't seen in a very long time. The last time we've had a curved device like this from Apple is, well, I think the iPad 4. The 3GS was the last iPhone to be rounded on the back, and the iPad 4 is the last iPad. And that's probably a good thing, as a device being flat means that it's thinner and therefore easier to use. There are advantages to the size, however. The iPad 4's battery is beastly, with a size of 11,560 milliamp hours. That is huge. I've done some research, and as far as I can tell, this is the biggest battery Apple's ever had in an iPad, which is insane when you think about it, considering this tablet is over 6 years old. That said, as time's gone on, iPads have gotten more power efficient, and so they still probably will have similar real-life use when it comes to the battery as the iPad 4. The new iPad Pro 12.9 inch with the nearly bezel-less display has almost 11,000 milliamp hours, but it's not quite as big as the iPad 4's battery. Still, it's actually pretty impressive they were able to cram such a big battery into such a thin device. If you get the chance, if you're at a mall or something, go and just hold the new iPad. It's insanely light and thin, and I can hardly believe Apple managed to do it. It's crazy. Still, I really do like this old design, and again, having the larger size does bring some benefits. The screen is also Retina, so it actually holds up really well. There are no visible pixels, and so using the iPad 4 nowadays really isn't too uncomfortable. I actually do have a video on how it holds up nowadays, by the way, so if you want to see that, there'll be a link in the description below. This video isn't really anything significant. It might feel a little bit redundant even, and maybe it is, but I still want to go over the iPad 4 because it really does mark the end of an era. It's a unique device in the sense that we're never going to see anything like this ever again. This is the end of a certain way that Apple designed their products. I can't help but feel a lot of their new devices are just missing some of the charm these older ones had, not only with software, but with the hardware too. Apple just doesn't feel as innovative anymore. And while a lot of that has to do with the stagnation in the tech industry, as in things have gotten so good that they don't really have a lot of room to get better, I still can't help but wonder where Apple would be today if Steve Jobs hadn't passed on. The man, while he may have not been fun to work with, according to a lot of people, was a genius and one of the most influential people of, well, quite frankly, ever. Without him, we could still be using flip phones today, although I'm sure someone would have figured something out, but you never know. Could you imagine using flip phones in 2018, 2019? That could never be a thing, right? But all of this innovation and all of this classic hardware, it all came to an end in 2012 with the release of the iPhone 5 and iPad 4, and I mean, it had to end eventually, right? Sometimes taking a nostalgic look back at tech can be enjoyable, and so that's what I wanted to do today. Hopefully you got something out of this, and if so, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. Also, go check out Wondershare's Recover It. It's nice to have for peace of mind, and it's free to download, so you might as well. I'd like to do some more content on iOS 6 in the future here, maybe comparing it to iOS 12, so if you'd like to see that, let me know by liking this video and commenting your thoughts below. That all being said, I'm pretty much done here. You can follow me over at 91_tech on Twitter and Instagram if you want some more technology in your life. And with that all being said, I'm Josh from 91tech, and I will see you all next time.